Welcome back to the cryptowrld channel, everyone. My name is Josh, and right now, Bitcoin is still trying to play out some sort of bullish relief in the short term, but is continuously being pushed down by this massive level of resistance, at least right now in the short term. And we're seeing something very similar happening right now in the US stock market, pushing towards all-time highs, but starting to struggle around this major area of resistance here, which also, of course, helps cause a lot of struggle in the short term for Bitcoin and crypto, which I'll talk about in just a moment. But we now have new price targets to pay attention to here in the Bitcoin liquidation heat map, while Ethereum is now starting to reject from this important area of resistance on the price chart, while the price of Solana is still holding above but could soon retest this important area of support. So I'll be talking about all of that and more later in the video, so definitely watch to the end. First of all, just before taking a look at the Bitcoin and crypto charts today, taking a really quick look at the US stock market today. This is the S&P 500 index on the 1 hour time frame, and we can see that obviously recently we've seen a major relief, a recovery out of that previous pullback in the US stock market up towards all-time highs. This is basically the all-time high right here, but we can see that right as we're approaching the previous highs, we are obviously finding a lot of resistance around these highs where we've previously found resistance. And so now that the US stock market is starting to find resistance around these previous highs, starting to struggle a little bit and possibly even play out a slight little rejection in the short term, as it is starting to do as of recording this video. Of course, while all of that's happening for the stock market, we'll likely see something similar to this, not necessarily the exact same, but something similar to this for a lot of the crypto market, because as I always say, as I've been saying for many years now on the channel, the crypto market and the stock market's highly correlated, which means if the stock market now starts to struggle a little bit, we could see a bit of struggle in the short term for Bitcoin and crypto. So keep that in mind throughout the video. And if we're taking a look at the Bitcoin charts today on the weekly time frame, the super chain indicator is still sitting in the red, and we still have a massive bearish divergence to watch out for, which has not yet been invalidated. And so overall, on the much larger time frames, the weekly time frame, not much has changed over the last one day for Bitcoin. But obviously, like I've mentioned recently here on the channel, we just recently hit oversold in the weekly Bitcoin RSI for the first time since around June 2022, the middle of 2022. And obviously what came next after we saw that signal actually confirmed last time was just a bit of a bullish relief in the coming next few weeks or so. But remember, this is not necessarily a bottom signal. It is possible we can go lower at some stage later on. And if we're taking a look at the 3-day Bitcoin price chart, we can see that right now, and obviously over the last half a week or so after that flash crash, we saw a major bounce from this level of support sitting at around $60,000, pretty much exactly 60,000. We have a key level of support there, and below that level we also would likely find a lot of support in between 53,000 to 56,000 if the price actually got to those levels right there. And as for resistance, as I've been warning about since basically the moment we broke below this area, because it was previous support which is now acting as new resistance, this is sitting at around 72,000 to 76,000, especially as we hit around 72,000, the start of that area. Of course, we have a lot of resistance, and so far that's pretty much exactly where the price is struggling at on the price chart, and starting to see some slight little rejections from around that area. But remember, as I've been saying over the last few days, at the same time as the price starting to run into this resistance, we're also still trying to play out this oversold signal here in the 3-day Bitcoin RSI, which tends to play out in the form of either a sideways consolidation, so chopping around sideways like this, or potentially a little bit more of a bullish relief, which suggests that, of course, the price will likely continue testing this resistance in the coming days or possibly weeks. Once again, we can see slight little rejections here and there from the resistance, but not necessarily crashing below this $60,000 low, at least not right now, not straight away within the next few days. And so overall, my prediction has not changed over the last few days. Since after we saw that flash crash, I said we're likely now going to see either a bit of a bullish relief into this area of resistance, or perhaps just play out a bit of choppy sideways price action, especially as we start to struggle around this resistance resistance. So not necessarily a huge crash towards new lower lows, at least not right now in the next few days or weeks. Once again, we're likely going to continue a little bit more of a relief just in the shorter term. But remember, expect a lot of struggle around this resistance. And if we're zooming further into the short term, taking a look at the 2-hour Bitcoin price chart, we can see that obviously after that quick crash towards the downside, we then played out a short-term bullish relief and then a lot of choppy sideways price action, which is exactly what I've been talking about. And this will likely continue a little longer here in the shorter term because once again, we're trying to play out an oversold signal, which means expect a bit of a relief, a bit of a break from all of the bearish price action. But as we're running into resistance, obviously that's basically an obstacle on the price chart, at least for now, preventing further bullish price action. So for now, that's kind of putting a ceiling on the price, causing this choppy sideways price action because we're playing out the oversold signal. So we're not really seeing a crash. We're trying to play out the bullish relief, but we're just pushing up against this resistance, struggling at this area, which is to be expected. And in case you're new to the channel, this level of resistance here in the short term is sitting at specifically around 71.6k. So just below 72,000. Start to expect a lot of resistance around there on the price chart, as I've already been saying since basically right back here. In fact, even before we saw the first little rejection, I've been talking about this resistance at give or take 72,000, starting at close to 72,000. And obviously over the last 1 to 2 days, with this new development in the price action, we're now starting to form relatively horizontal lows. So previously we were obviously forming higher lows. Now we're starting to form relatively horizontal lows, now developing some horizontal support on the price chart, which is sitting at give or take 68,000. So expect at least some short-term support at around 68,000. And then once again, we have a lot of support all the way down here at around 60,000. But remember, the price of Bitcoin will likely follow somewhat similar price action to whatever the stock market's doing. So of course, if the stock market is struggling a little bit as it is doing right now around these highs, around this resistance, we could potentially see a little bit more of a struggle underneath this resistance in the next couple of days for Bitcoin. Once again, not necessarily crashing below the 60k low in the next couple of days, but just struggling a little bit. So kind of like the price action that we've seen over the last 1 to 2 days could possibly continue as a likely scenario in the next 1 to 2 days, especially if the stock market continues struggling as well. And if we're taking a quick look at the Bitcoin liquidation heat map, looking at the last 1 week worth of price action, obviously a couple of days ago, we saw the price take out this area of liquidity here that was sitting at give or take $72,000 per Bitcoin with a slight little liquidity grab towards the upside and then quickly back underneath that level of resistance, as we can see there. But if we're taking a look at what we are seeing right now, we have a small amount building at around 72.4 to 72.5k. So roughly 72,500. We do have a new level of liquidity to focus on right around there. But even though that's the main level of liquidity to watch out for in the Bitcoin liquidation heat map, at least in the shorter term, of course, it is worth pointing out that we have a smaller amount building just below the price of Bitcoin here, sitting at give or take 67,000. So just keep that in mind, especially if the US stock market continues to struggle a little bit here in the short term around that resistance that I just mentioned earlier, then it is possible that we could see a little bit more of a struggle for Bitcoin, maybe simply just taking out that liquidity at around 67,000, then potentially seeing another little relief towards the upside to come up for another test of this resistance in the coming days. And so overall, those are my expectations and predictions in the short term. And once again, the bigger picture, not really changing all that much over the last 1 day. And of course, if you want to trade any of these moves in the price of any crypto, you need to be set up ready to go on a crypto exchange. And if you use the first link below the video in the description and in the pinned comment, that first link below this video will take you to this page right here over on the BTNX crypto exchange, which is an exchange that I use myself personally. And by the way, it's also a no KYC exchange. And using that first link below the video, if you make your account using that link, as you can see on this page, there's an exclusive prize pool of up to 50,000 USDT just by simply trading crypto using that link below the video to BTNX. So obviously, if you're going to be trading crypto anyway, you might as well check this out and take advantage of this. Once again, first link below the video. And remember, BTNX is also a no KYC exchange. But if you want another option out there, another exchange that I also use that's also a no KYC exchange, then in that situation, check out the second link below the video in the description and in the pinned comment, because the second link below the video will take you to this page right here over on the 2bit crypto exchange, which once again is also a no KYC exchange, and they just recently partnered with La Liga. So to celebrate this partnership, there's a 800,000 USDT prize pool up for grabs simply just by trading crypto using that second second link below the video to 2bit. We'll take you to this page right here where you can take advantage of some major prices just by trading crypto. So obviously, if you're going to be trading crypto anyway, you might as well check this out. Take advantage of this using the second link below the video. And remember, 2bit is also a no KYC exchange. But with that being said, taking a quick look at the Bitcoin dominance chart on the daily time frame, and right now in the immediate short term, obviously we're seeing a slight little bounce after that previous slight little pullback in the short term. But for the most part, the Bitcoin dominance is still just basically bouncing around relatively sideways on the price chart, playing out basically a sideways price range, very neutral price action on the price chart in terms of the trend or momentum. And so overall, this is continuing to tell us that a lot of the major altcoins out there on average will likely continue to perform very similar to whatever Bitcoin is doing, which once again means, of course, if Bitcoin continues a little struggle in the short term, not necessarily a huge crash straight away or anything like that, but just a bit of a struggle underneath resistance, expect something similar to this for a lot of the major altcoins on average, is basically what this Bitcoin dominance is telling us right now. And if we're taking a look at Ethereum on the 3-day time frame, we are indeed seeing that. Obviously, over the last half a week, over the last few days, we have seen a decent bounce, a bullish relief in the shorter term, but now starting to struggle as expected, especially as the price is now running into this exact level of resistance that I've been warning about ever since we started the bounce at 1.8k from this exact level of support. Obviously, I've been talking about around 2150 as the low end of this area of resistance, where the resistance really starts. Once again, 2150 to 2250. And obviously, as we can see over the last couple of days, as soon as the price of ETH hit this exact level at 2150 to the nearest cent to that level, we pretty much perfectly saw a slight little rejection from that level, which once again is to be expected. This is exactly what resistance does. It causes the price to struggle and even see some slight little rejections from these areas of resistance. But considering the fact that the price of ETH is also still trying to play out this oversold signal, not just on the daily time frame, but also here in the 3-day Ethereum RSI, we hit oversold over the last few days with that obviously massive flash crash over the last 1 to 2 weeks or so. We hit oversold on the 3-day RSI. The last time this happened, we did see a decent bullish relief lasting at least around a week. It can possibly last for a little longer, but at least for a week, give or take, we're likely going to see a bit more of a relief, which means either some choppy sideways price action like this, or potentially a little bit more of a bullish relief, potentially seeing maybe another retest of this resistance within the next few days or so, not necessarily right this moment. But overall, if we're talking about, let's just say the next week or so, honestly, I expect the price to remain in this sideways price range between this support and this resistance, at least for now, just in the short term. Once again, the support sitting at around 1.8k and the resistance as an area sitting in between 2150 to 2.2k. And if we're taking a look at the price of XRP on the weekly time frame, not a lot has changed over the last 1 day on this much larger time frame here. We still have a massive bearish divergence, technically still active, still playing out as I actually warned about since basically above $3, since almost all-time highs. I've been warning about this multi-month bearish trend, a massive collapse in the price, warning about that since when the price was once again back above $3. You can even check my videos all the way back then around July, August 2025, warning about all of this still to come. But obviously right now we are running into a major area of support here, sitting in between $1.30 to $1.40. So just in the short term, yes, expect some support around there. And as for further levels of support along the way towards the downside, if we actually break back below around $1.30 with confirmation, in that situation, the next support I'll be watching is at around $1.12 to $1.14. And below that, we would likely find a lot of support in between 90 cents to $1 if the price, of course, first breaks these other levels of support. And as for resistance, in case we see a further bounce in the short term at any point, expect a lot of resistance closer towards $1.60. And if we're taking a look at the 3-day time frame, obviously right now in the somewhat shorter term during the much larger multi-month bearish trend, remember, we've not yet confirmed the end or the reversal of this larger bearish trend, but during this trend, yes, we are playing out this oversold signal, which means continue to expect a little bit more of a relief as a very likely likely scenario, just a bit of a short-term break from all of the bearish price action. Once again, not necessarily a reversal out of the trend, but either some choppy sideways price action or a slight little bullish relief is still quite likely within the next few days or possibly within the next 1 to 2 weeks. And if we're taking a look at the price of Solana on the 3-day time frame, it's looking likely that very soon, especially if Bitcoin and stocks, etc., continue those short-term struggles for now, it is looking likely that that could help Solana come back for another retest of this important area of support very soon, which is sitting in between around $75 to $80. Once again, continue to expect a lot of support in that area in between 75 to 80, but it's also worth pointing out that we're still sitting in oversold in the 3-day Solana RSI, even despite that bounce that we saw over the last few days. Really, over the last 1 week or half a week to 1 week, we've continued to stay in oversold territories in the 3-day Solana RSI. And the last time we even got close to oversold, the last couple of times actually we got close to oversold, yes, we did see just a bit of a relief from all of the bearish price action. Remember, this is not necessarily a massive reversal signal. This does not mean expect a huge bullish reversal towards the upside, but just in the short term for the next few days or possibly weeks, yes, it is quite likely we could either see a slight bullish relief or maybe just a bit of a sideways price range, as we saw right here during December. We saw a lot of choppy sideways price action, some short-term bearish moves, some short-term bullish moves, but for the most part, kind of just bouncing around somewhat sideways on the price chart. But once again, that occurred during the larger bearish trend if we zoomed out and look at the bigger picture. And so that's basically my expectation right now. A bit more of a break, kind of like what we saw during December 2025, but not necessarily confirming the end of this larger bearish trend is basically still my expectation right now for Solana and really a lot of the crypto market. And if we're taking a look at Chainlink on the 3-day time frame, unlike Solana, potentially soon, possibly going to see a retest of this area of support, Chainlink is already now retesting this important area of support sitting in between around $8 to $8.50. And so obviously based on previous significant support in this area and also based on previous significant resistance flipping into new support, of course, expect support at around $8 to $8.50, which we're now once again testing as of recording this video. And we're also still trying to play out this oversold signal in the 3-day Chainlink RSI, telling us that yes, just in the short term, we could play out a little bit of choppy sideways price action, maybe a slight little bullish relief. But remember, this is not a bottom signal. This is not a reversal signal. So overall, in terms of the larger trends that we're in, the longer term trend, at least for now, this is still technically bearish, but just in the short term, yes, expect a little bit more of a break from that larger bearish trend. But as for resistance, I would expect a lot of resistance in between around $9.50 to $10. And remember, when it comes to a lot of these altcoins, really just pay attention to what Bitcoin and stocks are doing to figure out what is likely going to happen for a lot of the altcoin market, at least here in the short term. And remember, if you want to trade any of these moves in the price of any crypto, get set up ready to go using those links below this video to those exchanges. If you want to take advantage of extra bonuses that are only available using those links to certain exchanges. And of course, if you want to actually know how you can trade any of these moves, no matter what direction the price goes, then make sure to watch these videos popping up right here on your screen. The video in the top left shows you how you can profit from bullish or bearish price action using long positions or short positions. And the video in the bottom left shows you how you can easily profit from choppy sideways price action. But anyway, that is everything that I have to say for today. I really hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video.